Hello and welcome to Byju's. This is fifth in the series of Geography this week. Conferences which are held every year, it may be with reference to biodiversity, it may be with reference to global warming or any conferences. So in prelims, there may be chances that the places in which they are held can be used, or sometimes the places which are associated with that region can also be asked in case of objective type questions. Along with that, chances are there that they may ask you the themes of the meetings. So in case of prelims and mains, you have to take a consideration of these reports as well as the outcomes of the meetings which have been done, the conventions or the meetings which have been done with the perspective of the mains parameters. So with this, we start today's session. Now, the topic is the forest fire. Forests are very significant in case of the biodiversities because forests are considered as the carbon sink, as they absorb more amount of carbon than what is released. So because of their absorbing capacity of carbon, they are referred as the carbon sinks. So in one way, they are reducing the pollution from the atmosphere. So that's why they are referred as the carbon sinks. Now, when we talk about the forest fires, these forest fires can be natural, that is due to striking up of the lightning or pronounced droughts which increases the temperature in that region, or they can be man-made. So both are responsible for the forest fires. Since from 1970s, the incidence of man-made fires have increased more. As the population have increased, so the incidence of man-made forest fires have increased in all the parts of the world where the habitation is given or the people are residing in the neighboring areas of the forests. So chances of the forest fires of the mans have increased more than the natural forest fires. And these forest fires are also very significant when we say they are periodic. So periodic forest fires are very significant in some of the biomes which we call them as the grasslands. It may be savanna, it may be pampas, prairies, downs or velds, what we call it as the tropical and the temperate grasslands. So in that, the periodical fire is very significant in maintaining the grassland biomes. And along with that, the ecological significance of the forest fires are, it returns important nutrients to the forest soil stored in the biomass. Because in case of biomass, to decompose that, it takes longer time. But when the fire is there or when the fire burns the biomass, it enters comparatively faster than the degradation. So it means that it returns the nutrients faster. It reduces amount of built up and reduces the large danger. It means that the dead wood which accumulates or keeps on accumulating in the forest areas, if it is not removed by the fire, in the case when it accumulates in a longer volume or in a bigger volume, when the forest fire takes place, maybe 20 years or 30 years after that, the large amount of the dead wood can create the more danger. Many tree species require fire to germinate their seeds. So it means that seeds germinates only when the fires are there. It means when they burn the unwanted things. Removals of the alien plants and it supports for the growth of the native species. Any invasive species are there, it is burnt off by the fire. So it means it removes the alien plants. Not only plants, even the faunas are also removed by the burning capacity of the fires. It helps in ecological succession. It means when the climax community is destroyed, again new ecosystem is formed. So this succession, it may be primary succession or it may be secondary succession. It helps in the ecological succession, continuation of the ecosystem in the forest. It also improves the floor habitat for the new species. So these are some of the significant aspects of the forest fires. These forest fires are named after the geographical area from where they start. It may be the street or it may be any important area from where the fire starts. So they are named after the geographical area from where it starts. So it helps for providing fire officials to track and prioritize the incidents. So that's why these fires are named after particular geography or the area from where they start. Now, this California fire was in the news, more specifically in the month of October and November. And in the month of November, we find this California fire become more deadly, and the two areas from where in the month of November it become more deadly was, one is the Camp Fire and second one is the Woolsey fire. So they are named after the regions there. Now, why they have become more deadly in case of October and November only? Even in case of August also we find the forest fires were there, but they were not deadly. They didn't provided much blaze. They didn't created much pollution of the environment or the air pollution. But in the month of November, we find it created the pollution, which was considered as one of the worst in case of the world. Now, why they are more deadly in these months? Now, in the month of October and November, they become more deadly because of the local winds which produced or which forms in that region. One is referred as the Diablo winds and the Santa Ana. So these two are the dry winds which are found in the California region. The Diablo winds are found in the northwestern side of California, and the Santa Ana winds are found in the south of the California. So these are the winds which are produced from high elevated areas, more specifically in the Nevada regions, from where the desert areas are there, the Mojave Desert. And from there, the winds tend to move towards the low pressure which is created in the west coast near the Pacific Ocean. So they follows the direction, and while moving from the high pressure to low pressure, they don't move straight. Instead of that, they travel through the valleys and the canyons. So when they travel through the valleys and canyons, it increases their temperature and they become more deadly. And at the same time, in this part of the season or the year, the ecological conditions are such that it is completely dry and pronounced drought is seen, and the moisture is also very less in that part. So because of these ecological factors and the winds, the California fire in the month of October and November becomes more worst or deadly. And in the year 2018, it was considered as one of the deadliest fire recorded in the history of California, which was responsible for blazing up of fire through the valleys and the canyons. And along with these local winds, they also found that there is a relation between the snow deposit and the fire, more specifically in case of California. Now, due to global warming, the temperature has increased. Now, when the temperature has increased, it has reduced the snow period, or the snow formation period has reduced. So when the snow formation period has reduced, it means that the moisture availability is also reduced. And this reduction in the snow period is responsible for increasing the summer. It means the summer arrives comparatively faster than the timings. So because of that, the temperature increases in that region. And this phenomenon of decreasing the snow deposits accelerates the cause of the forest fires in case of the California. And when we talk about these, they found that in this region, which we call it as the Sierra Nevada, they found that because of global warming, there is a tendency of decreasing of the snow, which was more in case of 1970s and 80s. It means that the winter season has decreased. The time period of winter season has decreased, and summers are arriving more pronounced, or they are arriving quite faster than the usual times, which increases the temperature and decreases the moisture of that region. So when the moisture is decreased, the forest tends to be more deadly in that region. So here we can say in the month of October and November, one is the local winds that is the Diablo winds and the Santa Ana winds are responsible. Along with that, the global warming, which is responsible for decreasing the snow period, is also responsible for decreasing the moisture and bringing the fire into more disastrous. So these are the Diablo winds, which blows from highland area towards the Pacific coast, bringing these areas more deadly. And the Santa Ana winds are the winds which blows in the southern California towards the low pressure areas. While moving, they always channelize through the valleys or the canyons, which increases the temperature of a wind and which causes the fire to be more deadly, which is seen in this way. So this is a high pressure which is created, and the Santa Ana winds, they never go straight. They always follow the channels, that is the mountain valleys or the canyons, and when they reach, because of more adiabatic heating, because of the descent, the temperature of these winds increases. They are not be the reason for causing of fire, but they are responsible for making the fire more worst. Now there are chances that there may be question on the forest fire in India, because a joint report has been prepared in case of India 2 months back. Now some of the parameters or some of the statistics which help in prelims or also in case of mains with reference to India. In case of forest fires in India, and India is also very significant for forest fires because India lies in the tropical areas, that is near to the equator. And in case of India, we find that more of the regions are found in the peninsular part. More specifically, here we find the dry region, thorny and scrub forests are there. So chances of forest fires are more in this part. So because of the geographical location and the barriers like Western Ghats, which make this region as an arid region, we find the forest fires are also more significant in India. Now, some of the statistics are 46% increase in the forest fire cases from 2003 to 2017. 125% increase in the last 2 years, that is from 2015 to 2017, there has been an increase of 125%. 90% of the forest fires are man-made in India. More than 50% of geographical area affected by the forest area because of the location. We can say all the states, or we can say almost all the states are affected by the forest fires, but not in the uniform way. The intensity varies, but definitely we can say almost all the states are affected by the forest fires in India. And the most affected areas are the northeastern. And here when we talk about the northeastern regions, in the northeastern regions it is the agricultural practices which we call it as the Jhum cultivation or the shifting cultivation, which is also called as the slash and burn, is responsible for increasing the fire tendencies in the northeastern and the central part of India because of the dry region. So we find northeastern and the central part of India are worst affected by the forest fires. And in case of India, these forest fires are more specifically are confined before the monsoon, which we call it as the pre-monsoon period, where the temperature is comparatively high, and that season is from February 14 to May 15. And in case of India's forest fire, monsoon is the primary determinant of the fire season in India. If there is a delay in the monsoon, then forest fire incidences increases because of the temperature increase and the dryness of that region where there will be a less moisture content. So the monsoon defines the fire perspective in India. If there is an early monsoon in that year, definitely we can say there is a decline in the forest fires in India. And if the monsoon exceeds or if there is a delay in the monsoon, then we can say the forest fires incidence will be high in case of India. Now, when you talk about the Indian forest perspectives, a joint report has been prepared by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India and the World Bank. This report is very significant in identifying the geographical regions where the vulnerability of forest fires are there, what steps has to be taken, and what incidents are responsible for the forest fires. And when we talk about these parameters, India is committed to bring 33% of geographical area under forest cover, and it is also reflected in the National Forest Policy of India 1989. When we talk about the forest policy, there also it says that 33% of the geographical area should be brought under the forest, and it also had a plan of bringing around 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional carbon sink by the year 2030. And these two are the part of the National Mission for Green India under National Action Plan for Climate Change. So these are significant things to be known, the commitments of India towards increasing the forest covers. And in case of providing the reports, it has used the Keech-Byram Drought Index. The Keech-Byram Drought Index is used by the Forest Survey of India for defining the fire danger rating systems, and it consists of 0 to 800 points. Any value which is near to 0 says saturated soil, it means more amount of moisture, and anything which is more than 700 indicates dry area, drought area. Chances of fire are comparatively high in this region. So in defining the fire ratings, we use the KBDI, that is Keech-Byram Drought Index. Now the topic is the Great Dying, which refers to the largest mass extinction which occurred 252 million years ago, and this was responsible for wiping 96% of all marine species and more than 70% of the terrestrial species. So it was considered as the largest mass extinction of the earth, and it marked the end of the Permian era. And among the theories which gives an idea about the mass extinction or the Great Dying, the most accepted theory was the asteroid impact. So according to the asteroid impacts, the asteroids or the celestial bodies which collided the earth were responsible for the mass extinction, was the theory which was given prior to that. Now this has been modified by the research developments, and the scientific communities have highlighted the impact of global warming is very strong in defining the mass extinction. But that global warming is not associated with the human tendencies, or it's not an anthropogenic factor, but a natural cause of increasing the global warming. Now recently, with providing the paleoceanographic records, the scientists built a model to study the ocean animal metabolism and the climatic conditions. And they came out with the parameters that the volcanic activity was responsible for increasing the global warming. It means that volcanic activity was responsible for releasing up of the greenhouse gases, the sulfur dioxides and all these, which are responsible for increasing the temperature of an ocean or the marine bodies. So this volcanic activity was so huge that it increased the ocean temperature to around 10 degrees centigrade, and almost all 80% of the oxygen in the ocean was lost, and many ocean bases were become devoid of the oxygen. Now, when the temperature of the ocean water increases, the capacity of holding up of the oxygen decreases in that water, which leads to what we call it as asphyxiation. It means that severe decrease in oxygen concentration or severe decrease in dissolved oxygen. It is because of the increasing temperature. As the temperature increases, the oxygen holding capacity of water decreases, which leads to asphyxiation. So which is referred as the severe decrease in the oxygen. So which leads to 80% of the loss of the oxygen in the marine or in the oceans. And at the same time, increased temperature is responsible for increasing the metabolism of the marine life, both plants and the animal species. This increased metabolism is responsible for more consumption of oxygen than the regular. Because of increased metabolism, consumption of oxygen also increased. So more consumption of oxygen reduced the available oxygen in the marine species. So this deficiency of oxygen is responsible for the dead, or what we call it as the mass extinction. So this is the new report which says, and in the new report they have highlighted more specifically the global warming, that is increased temperature because of volcanic activity, is the major cause of the mass extinction of the earth, which was in the year 252 million years back. And by studying the paleobiology database, they are also given the pattern of the extinction. So at 252 million years back, the earth was having the Pangaea, which is called as the supercontinent. We didn't had the divided continents at that time. It was a Pangaea which was seen. And when they studied this database, they found that the regions near the North Pole and the South Pole, the extinction rate was very high because they are having less adaptability. So due to less adaptation, we find more extinction was seen near the North Pole and the South Pole. And in the tropical regions, we find that the adaptability was good enough. So because of the adaptability capacity of the species, we find less extinction is seen in case of the tropical regions than the pole regions of North Pole and the South Pole. So this is the pattern of extinction which is reflected by the study in 252 million years back, which is called as the largest mass extinction of the earth. And they have also made a warning that if the present tendencies are continued, then definitely the next mass extinction which is predicted will be human induced, which they call it as an Anthropocene mass extinction. Now the next topic in the discussion is the Sharm el-Sheikh in a country called as Egypt. So this region is referred as Sharm el-Sheikh, and this is in the southern peninsula of Sinai, and the Sinai Peninsula is a part of Egypt, and the Sinai Peninsula is found in between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. So Sinai Peninsula is in between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. The Sinai Peninsula was occupied by Israel and it was later transferred to Egypt. And the Sinai Peninsula is the only part of Africa which is found attached to Asia, or which is found in the Asian territories. We can say that this Sinai Peninsula connects Africa to Asia. So this Sharm el-Sheikh is in the southern part of the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, is very significant because of the meeting up of Conference of Parties, that is 14th meeting of Convention of Biodiversities. And this Convention of Biodiversity meet once in 2 years. So this was the 14th meeting of the Convention of Biodiversity, and this was held in this region which is called as Sharm el-Sheikh. And along with that, two events are also significant which talks about COP-MOP. It means that it is the 9th meeting up of the Conference of Parties, that is meeting up of parties for the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. So it was the 9th meeting of the Cartagena Protocol, and it also highlighted the MOP3, that meeting of parties of the 3rd annual meeting of what we call it as the Nagoya Protocol, which refers to the access and benefit sharing. So COP14 also highlighted these two, MOP9, that is Minister of Parties of the Cartagena Protocol, that is 9th meeting of the signatories of Cartagena Protocol, and 3rd with reference to the Nagoya Protocol with reference to the access and benefit sharing. And the theme of this event is referred as investing in biodiversity for people and planet. So this region hosted the COP14. And in case of Egypt, a river which is referred as the Nile River, and on the bank of Nile we find the dam, Aswan Dam is constructed. So sometimes there may be question on the geographical locations also. It may be with reference to the Sinai Peninsula, or it may be the regions which are separated by that, or the river parameters also. Now when we discuss about these water bodies, we always come across a sea called as Red Sea. Now, this region is the Red Sea. Initially, this whole part was part of Africa. Now, because of endogenetic forces, a part of a territory or part of a land, they made divergent movements according to the plate tectonic theory, which more specifically explains about the divergent plates. So this created a fault or breaking in the northeastern part of Africa, and it created a fault, and the plates moved away, the divergent plates moved away, and this divergent plates were responsible for creating a space or creating fault zone there or creating this water body, which we call it as Red Sea. So that's why Red Sea is referred as tectonic in origin. And along with that, this part of Africa moved away and grafted into Asia, which became the Arabian Peninsula. So this Red Sea is a tectonic in origin, and this aspect is explained by plate tectonic theory, which talks about the divergent plates. So while talking about the Sharm el-Sheikh, along with that, some of the regions or some of the geographical places are also in the news. For example, the two islands which are called as the Tiran Island and the Senefir Islands. So these are the two disputed islands. These two islands, Tiran and the Senefir Islands, were occupied by Israel, and Israel transferred these two islands to Egypt in the year 1979. In the year 1979, according to Camp David Accord. So from 1979, they become a part of the Egypt, and they were the disputed islands between Egypt and the Saudi Arabia. And in the year 2017, Egypt transferred these two to Saudi Arabia. That is, these two islands were transferred to Saudi Arabia in the year 2017, and this was validated. It means it got a legal approval from the Supreme Constitutional Court, which is the highest judicial body of the Egypt. So in the year 2017, it got an approval for transferring these two islands, that is Tiran Island and the Senefir Island, to Saudi Arabia. And along with that, we have this region which is called as Gulf of Aqaba. So this Gulf of Aqaba shares borders with Egypt, Israel, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. So we can say Gulf of Aqaba shares borders with the four countries, that is Egypt, Israel, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. So there may be question which can be asked regarding the Gulf of Aqaba, which shares the borders with how many countries. So four countries are there with which it shares the borders, and this Gulf of Suez and Mediterranean Sea are there. So here we find the Suez Canal, which connects the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. And here in this we find two states are very significant. One is towards the African part, that is Horn of Africa, which is called as Bab al-Mandab, and in the Arabian Peninsula, which is referred as Strait of Hormuz. So in this region we find lot of economical activities are done because of the huge deposit of oil resources are found. So that's why major choke points are also found in this regions, and this region is also very significant in defining the geopolitics of that particular area, more specifically the economic parameters. The last topic in the today's discussion is the Kuril Islands. So this Kuril Trench or the Kuril Islands were formed by the subduction of the Pacific Ocean beneath the Okhotsk Sea. This subduction created the Kuril Trench, where we find the islands have formed, and these islands are named as, in case of Japan, they call them as the Northern Islands, which are in the north of Hokkaido, and Russia refers them as the Kuril Island. So the Northern Islands is the name given by the Japan, and the Kuril is the name given by Russia. So these Kuril Islands or the Northern Islands are the group of islands stretched between Japan and Russia in the Pacific Ocean, more specifically bordering the Okhotsk Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Okhotsk Sea is the marginal sea of the Pacific Ocean. Now, after the Second World War, Russia occupied the 4 islands, that is Shikotan, Habomai, Etrov and Kunshir, and they forced the Japanese people to move away from that region. So after the Second World War, Russia occupied these 4 islands, in which 2 are major islands, 2 are a group of small islands are there. So because of forcible occupation of these islands by Russia, Russia and Japan have not signed the peace treaty to conclude the World War II. Till today, they have not signed the peace treaty to conclude the Second World War. Now, after the capturing of those, then the development was seen in the year 1956, where the joint declaration was found. And according to the joint declaration, it says that Russia has to transfer 2 small islands, that is Shikotan and the Habomai, to Japan. And it has not talked about these 2 islands. So it means it has never told to which particular country these 2 islands belongs to. It said that only the Shikotan and the Habomai has to be transferred to the Japan, which was the 1956 declaration. After that, many efforts have been done to sign the peace treaty between the 2 countries. In the year 2017, many efforts were done, but again without any fruitful, because the Japan's aspect was first to complete the territorial disputes, then we can go with the signing up of the treaty. That was a part, or that was the indication of Japan. It means that it wanted to clear the territorial disputes before signing the treaties. Now, again, in the month of December, that is 2018, in the sidelines of G20, that is more specifically December 1, a serious effort has been done between Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe and Putin towards the signing up of the peace treaty. And they have agreed to set up a framework, to intensify the peace treaty, and for that they have agreed for creating what is called as the special negotiation mechanism based on the 1956 declaration. So this is the latest development with reference to the Kuril Islands, because till now a peace treaty has been not signed between Russia and Japan to conclude the Second World War. So these dimensions will help them, so that they are planning, or the views are such that they are thinking to settle this or sign the treaty by 2019. So by this I conclude the session. Thank you.